Do your emotions control you, or do you lose control of your emotions? Are tears awkward and difficult for you? Do you repress how you feel? Are your feelings all stuffed up inside and confused? Are you captivated by your capacity to cry, but you just won't let yourself go there? In our last episode, we looked at the science and the function of tears in our emotional and physical being. In this video, we're going to explore the more hidden cultural and spiritual traditions of tears and of weeping and of crying in Western mysticism and in Eastern philosophy. In Western Christianity, the gift of tears is a spiritual gift that is given to individuals as an outpouring of the Holy Spirit. This language for the mystical experience of tears and of weeping and of crying is really quite fascinating when we unpack. There are a lot of mysteries to reveal. When we look at this mystery from this more hidden window into the lives of the saints, we can discern and observe that their experiences of tears were related to their understanding of an experience of a relationship with Christ, of a relationship with Jesus of Nazareth, particularly associated with his suffering and his passion and death, but also of his resurrection. The mystery of the living presence of Jesus and of the Christ in the life of the saint took on a very powerful experience. This experiential level of spirituality enabled the saint to open up their capacity for tears, for crying, and for weeping. This inner awakening opens up a door within the individual where the spiritual gift of tears is enabled to flow. This is a profound and moving moment in a saint's or an individual's life, where tears take on a much deeper meaning and purpose because they connect us to a reality that is beyond us, and yet is somehow interconnected and woven into our very being, into the fabric of our identities, into the very nature of our soul, our body and minds. When we connect at this level with a power outside of ourselves, the dynamic plug in there to something more enables an energy to flow and new awareness to awaken. There is an immediacy to this experience of awakening and living within a redemptive process, a process of self-transformation. The Christian Western language of redemption signifies a shifting or changing in an individual's disposition, in their capacity to demonstrate skills and abilities, which were called in the tradition virtues. The virtues are practices in daily life that enable us to function more readily, to respond more generatively, to be more responsive and more capable to deal with the stresses and anxieties of daily life, to cope better with emotional challenges and physical challenges, to feel more readily open to the modes of compassion and of patience and kindness, of the experience of joy, of the choice to feel positive emotions and thought processes towards situations that we would otherwise feel as very annoying and very difficult. And instead of an angry and aggressive path, the virtues enable a person to engage with more positive and proactive and nurturing approaches to living everyday life. And so what we're talking about here when we're looking at the Western mystical tradition of redemption and spirituality is a transformational journey that in our modern secular language is being very much reinterpreted, and it is manifesting in new ways and new programs and new pathways that are geared towards people who don't have that rootedness or cultural awareness or sense of tradition from the Western history. And yet this history is part of our heritage, and it's really useful for us as secular people to understand where our parents, grandparents, and ancestors came from and what legacy they have left to us, and what we can do with that, how we can activate that in practical ways in today's world. In the Western mystical tradition, and as well in Western orthodoxy, the gift of tears brings a healing, a divine gift of healing from the harm that is caused by sin, and leads us from sorrow to joy. The language that we would use in the modern day and in the secular world is quite different, but it's helpful to appreciate the power and symbolism of the heritage from which we all come. Through this gift, God pours forth divine grace into our brokenness, into our humanity, our fallen humanity, and brings forth a healing and renewal, a baptismal renewal within our very being. This activates a potential for growth and awareness. This activates an awakening process to the virtuous life. This activates a pathway of discipleship within the learning and development of the person within the tradition. The Father is believed to bestow this gift upon the child within this gift of tears as an instrumental and penetrating gift that cuts through the hardness of our hearts and brings us in humility to a place of self-awareness and of deeper relational capacity to understand what the divine presence wants to convey. This opens us up to a learning path, or a learning attitude, in fact. It teaches us how to learn, in a sense, how to engage, how to pray, how to open our minds to change, how to feel differently, how to interpret our feelings in light of a more virtuous life. These capacities and skills within the Christian, within our tradition in the West, is an amazing transformational process when you really start to look at the ins and outs of this. There is a lot of wisdom and a lot of layers that can be applied within modern psychology. Eastern philosophy and spirituality has so much to say about the gift of tears, and there is a lot of wisdom in the Eastern cultures towards tears, crying, and weeping. These are central and human processes that engage with spiritual growth and the opening of the self, the cracking of the ego, and the moving of the self towards enlightenment. Buddha's tears is one example where the tradition of the Buddha's tears is quite powerful across a number of cultures and countries in the East. Buddha's tears signify the natural flow of awakening that emerges within creation. They are symbolic of the flow of the spring, in a similar parallel way, in a sense, to our Celtic tradition in the West, where the spring and the sacred river become central places of an enlightening journey into nature and into the nature of our identities and our lives. Buddha's tears express a natural flow of awakening within nature, like the river of enlightenment. And when we tap into that flow, we circumvent our egos and we reduce the power of our illusions, and we become more clear. We apply a sense of turning on the lights, of coming to terms with our reality and of the suffering state of humanity. And in the Buddhist tradition, coming into an awareness of compassion and of deep, abiding appreciation for the human dilemma. This awareness emerges parallel to an increasing depth of knowledge, that is, an experiential knowledge that comes from our living the human struggle and observing the human struggle from a place where our meditation practice enables us to create a bit of distance, where I am not so much the body, I am not so much the mind, I am not even the body, I am not even the mind. This detachment from, or stepping slightly aside to, our natural identification with our experience enables us to observe, learn, and understand, to reinterpret our lived experience in such a way that we become more enlightened. Enlightenment in the sense is a cognitive awareness, but it's also a deep abiding appreciation and an abiding with the qualities of being, with the qualities of compassion, with the qualities of loving kindness. So in the Buddhist tradition, we see a parallel to the Western tradition in that sense, where the virtuous life leads onward to new awareness, new depths of experience, and new forms of enlightenment. And that enlightenment within the Eastern tradition is a pathway that all of us can engage. Likewise, in the Western mystical tradition, the pathway of awakening as atonement and redemption is available to everyone who opens their heart and being to the presence of the divine. The suffering of humanity in all of these traditions is really quite significant and central. And how to cope with that, how to work with that, how to grow with that, within that pathway of coming to terms with our human reality, we build the strengths and capacities that we need to transform ourselves into more resilient and more responsive people. In Mi'kmaq First Nation tradition, the keeper of the medicines is an individual who lives within the sacred lodge, the wigwam of the ancestors, keeping the sacred fire. The individual practices the sweat lodge, and other sacred ceremonies the individual may rise before the dawn to greet the sun in the eastern door, to pray for Turtle Island and all of creation. The Mi'kmaq medicine keeper raises the sacred pipe in ceremony, in respect, and in joy. Often, when carrying the sacred medicines, the individual will be overwhelmed by the gift of tears. In this tradition, the gift of tears is a cleansing. It reminds us of a feminine energy. It reminds us of the medicine of the women's nation. Women's nation is very sacred and based in the medicine of the water of life. And so the medicine person within the gift of tears understands that they are uniting themselves with this generative, giving, restorative, and creation-based spirit of the Creator. That this is a feminine energy, but also profoundly moving and transformative, and in that sense also a masculine quality emerges. The sacred pipe itself represents the feminine and the masculine. The pipe stem, the wooden stem, representing the masculine, and the pipe bowl representing the feminine. These qualities, this bipolar relationship between the dimensions of masculine and feminine energies within creation is manifest within the tradition, is taught, understood within the stories of the people. The old ones of the people are filled with stories of transformation and wonder, of magic and spirituality. The tearful state that comes up now and then when carrying the medicine enables an individual to abide in a personal relationship, an experiential relationship that is of kinship with others and within creation, where crying for others and for the nation becomes a sacred duty. Some of our family take on the roles of caring for the dead, of tending cemeteries, of places of the rest of those within who have passed over to the next realm, caring for the grave sites, taking care of a sense of communication with those who have passed on, and of listening to their wisdom and their teachings as that emerges in day-to-day life and in the challenges that we face in families and communities. A lot of these mystical experiences can't help but coincide with the gift of tears as we build our family, our tribe, and our nation within the unity of ecology and all of creation. Please join us then as we move forward to episode 3 in this mini-series on the gift of tears. This session, we've looked at so many deep and profound teachings within the Western and wider traditions of the East, as well as of Native North American traditions, as they are associated with the gift of tears. In our next episode, we're going to explore some beautiful poetry and amazing stories. Particularly dear to my heart, one story that I'd like to share from the life of St. Francis of Assisi. I hope that you will join us in the next episode, and if you haven't already, go back and listen to the first episode that covers a beautiful introduction to this topic. and some really valuable insights and suggestions on how you can deal with and learn about the gift of tears in your own path. We wish you all the best, absolutely. Please subscribe to our channel. It helps us, but also helps a lot of other people because, as you know, the YouTube system works on recommendations. And where you recommend us, you have liked or subscribed or both to this channel. And where you hit that notification bell, it signals to YouTube that people are very interested in the topics that we offer. And this absolutely helps the YouTube processes to recommend our information and wisdom to people that might need it or might be seeking that. But, you know, a lot of people are seeking this information and they don't realize it yet. So if you know of somebody who could benefit from one of our videos, please feel free to share it onwards, to give a link over in your Facebook community or other social media. Or if you're good at the tech situation, copy and paste one of our clips from one of our videos, create a clip yourself and pass that on. We're quite happy for you to do that and to share in whatever ways make sense to you. Thank you so much for your support. Please also consider visiting us over at awakenability.com, where we're developing some really innovative and dynamic programs for personal and professional integrity and personal growth. We just are so thankful that you've spent some time with us today. Take care and all the best to you and your family.